Hi guys. Happy Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm holding the microphone today. Usually I have it on the desk, but I'm not sitting at the desk because the cat lives in my office. Not literally, but the cat food's in there, and I don't know, he loves my desk chair. And there's a little rug in there he likes. And there's just, no matter how much I clean it, it just feels like cat hair central. And I'm pretty allergic to cats. It triggers my asthma. So my asthma was bothering me today. So I'm sitting in the family room. If it happens to sound different than it usually does, it's a little bit noisier in here with the air conditioning and the fan and all that stuff. So there's my disclaimer. How is everyone? How was everyone's weekend and day off, I guess? I think today is, I know that we used to have it off as a teacher. So I don't know. Mark didn't have it off, but maybe some of you did. And if you did, I hope you're having a lovely day. My weekend, I do have let me just say it at the top for all the people who, are here for the crime. I do have a mini true crime today, but I just have a few things to talk about first. So I will put what time in the notes I start the show, the actual show. But for all the people who like the chatter, let's chatter. My weekend was lovely. My best friend Jackie came down from Scottsdale with her 4-year-old son, who is adorable. And they got a hotel room Thursday and Friday night. And so I went and stayed there with them. And Friday we were going to go to Marana Pumpkin Patch, but it didn't open until 3. And we didn't know that. So that was a bummer. But we improvised and we went to the Children's Museum here in Tucson, which, oh boy, I don't want to offend anyone. It was a cool place for sure. If anybody has kids here in Tucson, definitely cool. I was spoiled as a kid growing up in Chicago by the museums there. So the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago is mind-blowing. The Field Museum, the Shed Aquarium, and I know there's many more museums, but those are the main ones I remember as a kid. And they were just so spectacular that no museum I've ever been to since literally compares. So it was cool. It was also jam-packed. There were so many kids, and I love kids, but whoa. Honestly, it was not more than the kids running around screaming and stuff. It was more, I was just floored by the different kinds of parenting that was occurring. And I am not a parent, so I was going to say no judgment, but this probably sounds judgy. And maybe it is. But, I don't know. I was just watching, playing with Jackie's son and walking around with him and whatnot, but also couldn't help but observe other parents. And wow, such a range of parenting occurring. Parents that were just literally on their phone. I mean, I saw several parents who had laptops out on their laps. They were sitting on a bench and just occasionally peeked up to see if their kid was there. And then I saw parents that were yanking their kids through, time to go to this area, time to move over here. And it was interesting. And only highlighted more so the fact of perhaps I'm biased, but what a good parent my friend is. And what a good son she had. I mean, so well behaved. I haven't been around little kids in a long time. Since I was teaching, and you forget, or I forgot, how first of all, how much never ending energy they have. And second of all, just like the 4-year-olds are tough, but hers is, I mean, he's a kid, but he's so well behaved. Anyways, I won't go on and on about that, but interesting place. Definitely worth a visit if you have young children here in Tucson. And then yesterday, Mark and I randomly decided to go to Apple Annie's. Wait, hold on. I'm not done yet. I'm sorry. Friday night, we came over to my house. Mark was staying at my house with the dogs. And so Jackie and I brought her son. I'm not saying his name because I don't know. You know, I'm always concerned about privacy stuff for people. And I've never asked her about that. So anyways, we brought him over to my house. We all came over here and Mark cooked dinner for all of us. And her son was so funny. We all ate dinner together. He loved Mark. We all ate together. And then, as a little kid, like I played school probably as a little kid. Like I'd set up a desk and pretend I was a teacher. He plays like restaurant. And that's probably because he watches like Bobby Flay. They watch the Food Network and he loves it. And so he would like come up to us with a notepad and a pen and say, can I take your order? And Mark would say like, yeah, I'll have a this, and this. And he would go, oh, we don't have that. We only have bacon and eggs. And this is probably not translating, to you guys because you don't know him. And, I feel like it's kind of like the dream thing. When you tell somebody a story about your dream, it's like, okay, I wasn't there, so I don't really care. Same type of thing I'm assuming with this. But anyways, it was really fun. Kids are fun. And I said to Mark the next day, like, see, because Mark loved him and loves kids. Doesn't that, like, hang out with him, doesn't that make you like want kids a little bit? Because it does make me a little bit. And he was like, no, I mean, I love kids, but at the end of the night, they're gone. Like he's gone. I don't have to wake up throughout the night. And and I said that to my friend Jackie too. Like there's no break. It never ends. It's overwhelming. So kudos to all the parents out there. I've been around kids. I was a nanny, a teacher. I mean, I've been around kids my whole adult life. But, like 2 nights and 2 days, not even 2 days, like you really get an insight into how just as a parent, you are never not a parent. All right. So yesterday then Mark and I went to Apple Annie's. I just wanted to like things that I do in Tucson, and I took pictures and videos of all of this that I will post. I just feel like people, since it's a show about the Southwest, usually, if, people who live here or people who are visiting here, things to do, it's helpful to talk about. So we went to Apple Annie's yesterday, which is in Wilcox, about an hour and a half away from Tucson. I said away from Tucson because I realized I'm not sure what direction, which I'm sure the human GPS is loving right now. It was great. We had so much fun. First of all, Mark had never been to a pumpkin patch and picked his own pumpkins. So that was very exciting. But it's set up like there's 2 different locations that are about 6 minutes away from each other. And the first one is fruit orchards. So apples, plums, peaches. And then they have like a little hamburger stand where apparently they also serve pancakes in the morning. And then they have a little country store with like jam and pie, pre-made pies, and just all kinds of, homemade syrups and things like that. So we went there first and picked apples, which was honestly less fun than I expected. And that's probably because it was really hot. We thought it was supposed to be a little bit cooler in Wilcox, but it was still really hot. And there are like so many apples. I was blown away by all of these fruit orchards and how much fruit grows on the trees and how much fruit ends up on the ground. And like, I don't know, something about decaying fruit really weirds me out. And anyways, it was beautiful and really cool, but I definitely was not as into the fruit picking. There's just so much of it. Mark must have picked like 75 different apples that we bought and brought home, and plums. He loved it, which I did not expect. And then we had hamburgers there, which were delicious, and bought apple butter, which is, if you've never had apple butter, go get some. And if you can get it from like a local place, my taste buds exploded. It was amazing. And I don't know, the name indicates to me that maybe there was some butter in that. It's like jelly for anybody who hasn't had apple butter. It's like apple jam, but it's richer. There is no butter in apple butter. It's just like apples and brown sugar and a few other things that are not coming to my brain right now. And then we went to the pumpkin place, and they have, just like huge pumpkin patches. And when we were driving there, we were both like, whoa, it smells a lot like weed right now. Initially I was like, well, somebody probably drove by smoking weed. And then Mark was like, no, I bet that's a weed farm right there. And it for sure was, because first of all, the smell was, knock you over smell. It smelled really good, actually. I don't always love the smell of weed, but it smelled great. And then, we saw this like fenced in. It was like high fence that you couldn't see through, security cameras all around. You could tell that it kind of looked like an outdoor greenhouse. Is that repetitive to say? Are all greenhouses outdoors? That feels like a dumb question, but I'm going to leave it there. And so that in the security cameras, the high fence, the fact that there was like it didn't say like, like Tom's weed growing facility or anything on the side of the fence or building or anything. It was unmarked. And it was huge. You could see that it just went on for so long, and I don't know where I was going with that, but it was just, I've never driven by or been near a weed farm. And weed's legal here and most places. So it's not like, oh my God, it's so shocking, but it was cool. And then Mark's grandparents, his grandpa grew up in Wilcox, and Mark remembers like going there as a kid and visiting the house, and he hadn't been there in years and years. So we went to and drove by their old house, and we went to like a little bar and got a drink, and it was awesome. And we picked 5 pumpkins. I'll post those as well. So many green pumpkins, which I've really never saw going to the pumpkin patch in Chicago. It was fun. I won't bore everybody anymore. We did have a conversation, which now I'm thinking is too much, so I'm going to save it. We had like kind of like a life conversation in the car, and I wanted to share it and get your thoughts on it, but I'm going to highlight this in my notes to make sure that I talk about it tomorrow at the beginning of the podcast, because it just feels a little bit heavy and like a little bit much for right now. I also am expecting a phone call from somebody, so if that happens during this, I'll pause it and then come back. 2 or 3 more things. Okay, two more things. Well, fine, 3. Movies. I know I asked for recommendations, and I did get some that I talked about last time. Thank you guys who sent them. I don't know if anybody else has sent them, because I guess I updated my Instagram app for the first time in like a year. I don't know, a really long time. And now, so in Instagram, I really need somebody to help me out with this. In Instagram, I'm going to open it up right now. My messages. Okay. So I used to have a tab in my DMs at the top that said primary. I still have that. Then I had one that said general. I still have that. And then I have one that says requests. But before, there was also one that said all. And it was just like I could see all of my primary messages, which I kind of gather from people that like we mutually follow each other. And then in my general messages was all the messages from, you guys. Sorry, not that I think of you as general, but people that maybe I don't follow back, I guess. I don't know how Instagram determines it. Either way, in my primary messages now, yeah, those are still there. I don't really talk to like my friends or people that I follow, which are mostly just my friends. I'm sorry, my friends like Jackie, like Nicole, like, Mark, my sister, things like that. I didn't mean to exclude you guys as my friends because I do feel like you're my friends. And then in the general tab though, and I'm going to post a picture of this. I'm actually going to screenshot it and post it after I get off. There's no messages. There's nothing. It just says notifications are off for messages. You can move here, but you can turn them on anytime. Well, there were messages. Like I don't have any. I know that a week or two ago, I opened this up and I was like, oh my God, I've got to start responding to people. And I wish I had taken a screenshot so that I could remember, but like there are no messages from any of you that I had been, I don't know, not regularly, but on and off chatting with. Like, I feel like Sandy Cakes. I pictured that one in my mind. There was a lot, but these are the ones that I know. Jess. Anyways, they're gone. They're all gone. I can't see them anywhere. I do see Chastity. Thank you. I just saw in message request that you sent a story suggestion. I will look at that after this. So if anyone knows how I get those back, because I have no idea. I don't know where they are, where they went to. I mean, a little bit, I feel like, okay, maybe that was Instagram's way of telling me I need to start responding to people sooner and we'll just start over. But if you have sent me a message or if we were kind of going back and forth, I know like back and forth means it takes me, I have like a 2-week lag and that's being generous. Can you please email me or I guess DM me or leave a voicemail or something, because I feel terrible and I would like to be able to respond to people, but they are all gone. What else? I took screenshots of some stuff. I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. All right. Well, okay. A scary movie that we recently watched is free if you're an Amazon Prime member on Amazon, called House of Spoils. I mean, I wasn't like blown away. I wouldn't call it like an Academy Award winner here, but it was entertaining. I thought it was cool. It had a good, like, I don't know, visually appealing. It was interesting. So that's my suggestion. We also rented Amber Alert on Amazon and rented Hear No Evil or Speak No Evil, the new one with James McAvoy. It was pretty good. So far, nothing that I was like, whoa, amazing. We did start watching a new show that's on Stars, but we watched it on Amazon, called Sweet Pea. It has the girl from Yellow Jackets in it. Highly recommend. Really interesting. Kind of dark, but cool. And last thing, and then I will get to the mini crime story. I feel like I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to. I know that, you've probably heard me read ads for Lumi microdose gummies. And that is a product that I love, that me and Jenna both love, and that I regularly use when I can afford it. I'm completely out of it right now and very bummed out. But I genuinely actually love that product. And that's, how not like we have advertisers knocking down our door, but when we were asked about reading an ad for something, like I want to try it, use it, whatever, before I read the ad for it. And how do I say this? Okay. But when you're reading an ad, there's not a script necessarily, but you get talking points and like things you have to say at the beginning or at the end. Like for BetterHelp, you have to say something at the beginning, like this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp or something legally. And then you have to say the thing at the end, whatever it might be, the promo code or website, whatever. And so I have an ad to read this week for hers.com, Hims and Hers. I'm sure you've seen the commercials. It's like, I don't know what they consider it. I'm sure it says it in the ad copy, but it's like a online wellness brand. It's an app. And so I have used hers.com for a long time. Like, I was so excited when I found out that they were going to try out an ad on the podcast. And I used it after Mark and I broke up because I was very depressed. I was having a really hard time getting myself together, as you guys know. And so I did an appointment online with a doctor and was prescribed an antidepressant. And the whole process was super simple, super easy. It was like on auto ship and it was great. And then 1 month, like they auto shipped it to me earlier than I needed it. And that was honestly probably my fault. But I was like, I can't afford this. Like I have a very limited budget every month. I can't afford to I wasn't expecting this charge. And so I can't do it. I'll send it back. And they were like, no, you don't have to send it back. We'll just reimburse you. Our mistake. I'm like, I don't even know if it was their mistake, but they reimbursed me immediately. Like the company is a joy to deal with, like very responsive. I mean, it sounds like an ad now. This is not an ad. But I wanted to give a precursor to the ad because I know that I can't just talk on and on and on about it. And I have to limit it and say some very specific things. So I want to, before I do that ad, which will, I guess, be in next week's episode, I wanted to just be upfront with that. Recently, hers.com started offering semaglutide, which is I've talked about this a lot. It's essentially generic Ozempic, I guess, generic Wegovy, whatever. And I was like, all right, I'm really unhappy with, struggling with my weight still. And this was 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. And I had been walking regularly and doing workout, really, really working hard. I went and seen that naturopath to get my hormones under control with supplements and stuff. And still nothing was happening. And I was just devastated that I couldn't, no matter how hard I seemed to work, I couldn't get anything on my body to change. So I don't ever think that a quick fix is the answer, but I was like, let me try it for a month. It seems affordable. I mean, affordable-ish. And so I did, and it worked. I didn't get sick. I didn't feel sick. And I lost 10 pounds. I was still working out, eating healthy, really trying. It wasn't like I just took this and then oh, boop, I can eat, brownies all day, every day and sit on the couch and I'm fine. No, I was still working, but whatever it is about it actually worked. And this is the third time I've tried it. But then the next month I was like, I need to find a less expensive option for this. So I found a compounding pharmacy here in Tucson and they were lovely. They were so wonderful. And I had the prescription. I got my primary care doctor to move the prescription to the compounding pharmacy because it was less expensive than hers.com. I just want to be totally transparent. I know you don't need all this information, but if I'm going to read an ad for them, I want you to have all the information. So I transferred the prescription to the compounding pharmacy here in Tucson. It was cheaper, got it from them, carried on. All of a sudden I stopped losing weight. No weight was lost. And I was feeling pretty nauseous. I noticed the side effects a lot more. I was like, well, I don't know, maybe it's just, maybe I wasn't working out as hard or whatnot, but nothing was happening. And a couple more weeks went by and I was so upset about it. And Mark was like, look, this is money that you can't really afford to be spending. So if it's not working, you're literally just wasting money. I was like, well, I can't afford it from hers.com anymore. The more months at a time you pay for, the cheaper it is. But I don't have embarrassingly, I don't have a reserve of a bunch of cash. I don't have a big savings account or anything that I can be like, oh, well, let me just drop this for 6 months supply. I don't. So Mark offered to help, and I went back to hers.com and got a 3-month supply of it. Thank you, Mark. And that was about 3 weeks ago. And I started losing weight again. Not a lot. I'm not going to lie. I think seeing it on the news and seeing it all everywhere, social media everywhere, it's like, and maybe for some people it does, but it's like, it makes it seem like, oh, you take the shot for a month or two and you're going to drop 40 pounds. You're going to look totally different. I don't. It's minor. I've lost maybe 20 pounds total, and I started in July. And then there was a month where I wasn't losing anything because of the compounding pharmacy. It was a different formulation. So that's the thing. The semaglutide, yes, it's generic. Yes, it's more affordable, but it's not like Wegovy or Ozempic where it's exactly the same formulation in every single, dose that they send out, or that people, you know what I'm trying to say, hopefully. So it's different everywhere. There's a slightly different formulation, and there's a lot of companies out there apparently that are kind of fraudulent about it. And you're not even getting, it's been said that some companies, you're not even getting semaglutide, you're getting insulin or, some other kind of something else that is, I guess, essentially harmless, but it's not going to make you lose weight. So I'm not going to name the compounding pharmacy because they were delightful. They were so helpful, so wonderful. And I think maybe just whatever their version was didn't agree with me somehow. And hers.com does. Now, I don't know. That could be wrong. All of that being said, I am going to read the ad for them because I have been using it and I have been super happy with it. I mean, honestly, I'd like to be losing weight a little bit faster because I am still eating really healthy and working out more than I want to. But they're just so I've had questions can I increase my dose? And if I do that, is it more expensive? Okay, well, can I just do 1 month? And all kinds of, they respond right away. It's so great. So I don't know if anyone is thinking about taking it or is thinking about taking it or looking for a new place to get it from or whatnot. But I know that when I used to listen to podcasts and I should have said this first, I'd listen to people read ads. Most of the time, they'd be like, well, I really do. I swear by this product. I use it. I do. And I'd always be like, yeah, okay, all right. You're just saying that, because you want to make money, which I totally understand. In our case, none of the ads are making that much money, but I do only want to talk about things and read ads for things that products that I actually use and like. And so I wanted to make it clear before I read this ad, and you maybe hear it in an upcoming episode, that I haven't talked about it because I was afraid it wouldn't work. And I didn't want to talk about it and then be like, well, guys, I still haven't lost any weight. I'm still depressed about it. It felt like, I don't know, complainy. And I just wanted to see what happened. But now that I'm reading the ad, I just want to make it clear that this is one of those instances, not where I'm I'm not reading an ad just to read an ad. I actually am using it. I do like it. I do wish I was losing weight a little bit faster, but I do like it. And hers.com, whether it's, there's more than just weight loss there. And I'm not going to talk about this any longer than I already have, which is too long. It's great. I highly, highly recommend it. For weight loss stuff, sure, but for antidepressants, I guess they do hair loss, sexual health, all kinds of stuff. So, anything like that, I have found it very easy to use and to work with the doctors and people there. So, excuse me. Okay. I'm sorry if that was annoying. But yeah. All right. I'll stop. Okay. So this mini crime story that we have today, and let me look and see what time. How long did I talk? 30 minutes. Wow. That's so annoying. I'm sorry, guys. 30 minutes. And I don't really feel like anything much was said in those 30 minutes, but there we are. Okay. I take it back. I don't know. Now, Micah, every time that I'm like, wow, I didn't say anything of importance. I can't believe people are still listening. I just think about your message that you sent saying like, hey, I'm still listening. And that makes me feel bad. So if you're still listening, I appreciate you. And let's move on to the Villisca Axe Murders. And this was suggested by several people. Does not take place around Halloween, but it is very spooky and weird. So apparently a lot of people know this story. I did not. This took place initially, the initial murders took place June 10th, 1912 in Villisca, Iowa. At the time, a small peaceful town of around 2,000 people. The victims were Josiah and Sarah Moore, the homeowners, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul Moore, the children, and Lena and Ina Stillinger, friends of the Moore children who were staying over for the night. And they were all killed. So on the evening of June 9th, 1912, the Moore family and the Stillinger sisters attended the Presbyterian Church for the Children's Day program, which Sarah Moore, the mom, had coordinated. After the program ended around 9:30 p.m., they walked back to the Moore house, got there around 9:45 to 10. Now, the next morning, June 10th, a concerned neighbor, Mary Peckham, noticed that the house was unusually quiet. She usually saw the family up moving around and outside doing their chores. No one had come out for morning chores. So Mary Peckham walked over and knocked on the door, but no one answered. So she called Josiah's brother, Ross. Josiah's the father, married to Sarah, who lives at this house. And so their neighbor called his brother for help. Ross had a key to the house, so he came over and he used his key to enter the house and discovered a shocking, horrible thing. He discovered the bodies of Lena and Ina Stillinger, the two friends of the kids who were visiting for the night, in the guest bedroom. And he was shocked. So he called the Villisca peace officer, Henry Hank Horton. It's Henry, but he goes by Hank. He came over, like before Ross went any further, he found the bodies of these two young girls dead and didn't step another foot in the house, which is a little bit weird to me. Like if I went to Jenna's house and found like one of her friends murdered in the front bedroom, I would certainly continue in the rest of the house to see if she was okay. However, apparently Ross didn't, and he waited for Hank to arrive. When Hank arrived and searched the house, he found that not only were Lena and Ina Stillinger, the friends, murdered, but he found that the entire Moore family had been brutally killed. And it appeared that the murder weapon had been Josiah's own axe, which was still in the guest bedroom near the Stillinger girls' bodies. Doctors estimate that the killings took place between midnight and 5 a.m. The initial evidence included 2 smoked cigarettes in the attic. And so that led investigators to believe that perhaps the killer kind of was hanging out there in the attic, smoking cigarettes, waiting for the family to go to sleep. Of course, my brain is like, well, I mean, 1912. Oh, okay, guys, there's my phone. Hold on. Okay, sorry. Whew, that was a longer phone call than I expected, but a really good one. And now I feel like I'm rushed because I have a dinner appointment. Oh my God, I can't just leave it at this, but this is not a short mini crime story. Oh, guys. All right, well, let's keep going. We'll see. Okay, so I think I was saying that they found, I realized that I've only been gone for like 1 second on the recording, but in my head I've been gone for like 45 minutes. So it takes me a minute to get back in. So they found 2 cigarettes that had been smoked in the attic. So they thought somebody was waiting there until like everyone went to sleep in the house. And I was thinking 1912, like, I can't imagine the attic is like that well sealed off from the rest of the house. Aren't you going to smell cigarette smoke like right above you? But I don't know. So the method of the killings that happened, the murderer appeared to target the adults first, which would make sense, beginning in the master bedroom where Josiah and Sarah were sleeping. Josiah was believed to be kind of the primary target because he was struck much more violently than anyone else, including his wife and all of the children. His face, I hate this, his face was beaten so badly it was unrecognizable. And there was even a gouge mark on the ceiling above where he was killed, indicating like that's how hard the person was swinging the axe, like all the way, like swang it back so hard that it hit the ceiling before bringing it forward again. So hard. Sarah was killed next after Josiah with the sharp side of the axe. While the murderer apparently used the blunt side of the axe on the rest of the victims, meaning the 4 more children and the 2 Stillinger girls. After killing the children, the murderer returned to the master bedroom to strike Josiah and Sarah again. I can't understand why, because I would imagine they were both already deceased. So there were a few strange details about this. Aside from just the horror of it, the killer apparently stayed in the house for hours, if not more, after the murders. Investigators found uneaten food. They found a bowl of bloody water, meaning that the killer likely cleaned up afterwards. Weirdly, all the mirrors and windows in the house were covered with cloth. And this is very sad. Lena Stillinger, one of the girls, she was 12. It appeared that she woke up during the attack, seemed to be the only one that woke up during the attack, and tried to fight back because she had defensive wounds. Also, her nightgown, when they found her, was pushed up. Initially, they thought that there may have been some type of sexual assault, but supposedly it was later disproven. So who did this was the question on everyone's minds. And there were a few initial suspects. Reverend George Kelly, he was a traveling preacher. He was visiting Villisca the night of the murders, and he had a history of strange behavior, a little bit of mental illness, apparently. He had been in trouble for peeping into windows and asking young women to pose nude for him. He left Villisca early the morning of June 10th, so that was just several hours before the bodies were discovered. And in the weeks following the crime, he apparently became obsessed with it. He wrote countless letters to police and investigators and even to family members of the Moores. This, clearly raised some suspicion among investigators, and a private investigator reached out to Reverend Kelly asking for details about the murders, and Kelly apparently responded with a highly detailed account. He claimed to have heard noises and possibly even witnessed the crime. I don't know exactly what that means, heard noises. He wasn't there, or maybe he was, according to him. He didn't specifically say in these letters, apparently. But also, His known mental health issues made it really difficult for investigators to kind of figure out if, like, was he involved? Did he make this up? But 2 years after the murders in 1914, he was arrested for sending obscene material through the mail. He was sexually harassing a woman who had applied for a job to be his secretary. I really want to know what the obscene material was, but I don't. Is that wrong? That's weird. I know. Sorry. This incident resulted in him being sent to a mental hospital in D.C., where his connection to the Villisca murders came up again. And in 1917, he was actually arrested for the crime. Police obtained a confession from him after a lengthy interrogation. However, Reverend Kelly later took back his statement, saying that it wasn't true. He went to trial twice for these murders, but he was acquitted both times. So he was no longer a suspect. The other suspect was Frank F. Jones, a prominent local figure and Iowa State Senator. Jones and Josiah Moore, the father and husband who was killed, had a difficult relationship. Jones and Josiah, this is a weird, I wrote this, but it's still confusing to me. Sorry, guys. Jones had a tense relationship with Josiah, who had worked for him before starting his own business. Why am I struggling to determine if Josiah worked for Jones or if Jones worked for Josiah? I think Josiah worked for Jones. Either way, there were rumors that Josiah had an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law. And I don't know who, but some people speculated that Jones hired someone named William Insane Blackie Mansfield to commit the murders. Detective James Newton Wilkerson, there are long names back then. He believed that this insane Blackie Mansfield was involved in various murders and possibly this Villisca murders as well. The detective claimed that all of these murders that were kind of occurring around the Midwest area were carried out in the same way. The victims were bludgeoned to death with an axe, the mirrors were covered, and the killer cleaned up afterwards. So this detective was able to convince a grand jury to investigate William Insane Blackie Mansfield in 1916. However, payroll records showed that Mansfield was actually in Illinois at the time of the Villisca murders, which led to his release. And Mansfield even later won a lawsuit against Detective Wilkerson for wrongful arrest. Another theory was that the murders could have been committed by a transient serial killer because of all these other similar axe murders across nearby towns and states. There were axe murders in Colorado Springs, in Paola, Kansas, and across the Southern Pacific Railroad between 1911 and 1912 that were very similar to the Villisca killings. So a lot of people thought there was just kind of like some traveling serial killer going around killing people. But no one was ever convicted of these horrific murders. 8 murders, and 6 of them were children. And the case remained unsolved. So there's even more of a bit of a legacy with this house, though. So the Villisca Axe Murder House is what it's now referred to as. Obviously gained a reputation as a haunted place. Reports of weird voices, footsteps, cold spots throughout. Paranormal investigators claim to capture EVPs, electronic voice phenomena, and witness objects moving on their own. And I believe the house was vacant for long periods of time and also passed through various owners until 1994, when the house was restored to its 1912 condition and turned into a museum. And it wasn't just a museum, but it was actually a museum that you could stay at. You could stay for $428 a night, which is quite a high fee, I believe, especially for 1994. And visitors who did pay this fee often reported strange experiences, like seeing a man with an axe or hearing children's screams. The Villisca Murder House became a popular destination, continued to be a popular destination for ghost hunters and horror enthusiasts. And people continued to report paranormal experiences. But in November harmless paranormal experiences. I should have prefaced with that. But in November 2014, during an overnight paranormal investigation, things turned a bit darker. Not darker than they did in 1912, but darker than they had been for many years. A man named Robert Stephen Lorson Jr. From Wisconsin was found stabbed in the chest with what appeared to be self-inflicted injuries during an overnight paranormal investigation. The attack occurred around 12:45 a.m., which was the supposed same time as the 1912 murders. And Lorson survived, but he didn't publicly speak about what happened, and no one ever really knew what happened until many years later, when he claimed that he had been overcome, and that's a direct quote, overcome by something in the house. And I want to read, this is directly from an article where Johnny Hauser, the Villisca Axe Murder House, the caretaker of the museum, and I guess it's kind of like a museum bed and breakfast. He would always check on the guests, and he did that night before he went home to bed. And this is what he said happened. He said, that night that changed everything in 2014 started off like any normal overnight. I was in the barn just waiting for the car to pull up. I saw the car stop, and this gentleman walked towards the barn, and I could see he had a hunting knife attached to his belt. He was wearing camouflage pants, which is kind of normal attire around here. So I just shrugged and let him in. He seemed very normal to me. No red flags, really. My red flag was at first that he was there with his mom and dad. But then instantly I'm like, don't be a jerk. Maybe that's their thing. He was probably, I'm guessing, in his 50s. They were quite elderly. Finally, he told me how he was going to give the house a piece of his mind. So I said, oh, cool. Have fun with that. And then I went home to bed. The next morning, I woke up, picked up my phone, and I was tagged in a million things on social media. I saw all these headlines. Man stabs himself at Axe Murder House. I just couldn't believe it. I rushed over to the house where I made a couple of my friends meet me. I didn't want to be flying solo in a situation like that. So we walked in, and right on the floor in the kitchen was a blanket wrapped up, and there was a little teddy bear foot sticking out of it. A lot of people bring teddy bears and dolls and stuff to leave as tokens for the kids, so that was a bit normal. But this teddy was all covered in blood, and my first thought was, not again in this house. I went in with a bottle of bleach and a towel, because I'd seen that on The Sopranos, and dumped bleach all over the floor and mopped the towel around with my foot. At that point, the house's other owner, sorry guys. Oh man. At that point, the house's other owner, Martha, came in, and she was crying. She was like, this is supposed to be fun. Should we just close? I told her we couldn't close. I told her that if we closed, people would say that we had to close because the house was too haunted. Pretty soon we'd have people breaking in. So I told her, let's just keep going. Excuse me. From there, we kept going. I later found out that the gentleman with the hunting knife had been in the house by himself doing some sort of solo investigation in the kids' bedroom. And that's where the mom and dad found the knife shoved through their son's chest. He'd been life flighted to a hospital in Omaha, Nebraska, and he survived. That was all I knew. I never heard anything more. I wanted to reach out to him, but I never did. And it wasn't until a few years later that I found out what had happened. So years later, apparently, that groundskeeper, Johnny Hauser, spoke to Lorson. A TV show called Kindred Spirits was filming at the Villisca Axe Murder House, which was focused on paranormal activity. And the producers had convinced a man who had a significant past experience at the house to revisit it for the show. Guess who that was? So one day while walking into the barn where the crew had set up their equipment, the groundskeeper Johnny was surprised to see this man sitting there. He immediately recognized him and exclaimed, "You." Shocked to see the man again, Johnny sat down with him and said, I have a million questions for you. And the man agreed that, and the man is Robert Stephen Lorson. So Lorson agreed to answer best he could. The first question Johnny asked was, why did he bring a knife to the house? And then Lorson explained that he usually carried a concealed handgun, but he didn't know Iowa's laws on carrying firearms, so instead he brought a knife for protection. Johnny asked, several other questions, and then finally got to the most important one, which was, what happened that night? And here's what he found out. Lorson explained that he had been alone in one of the bedrooms, provoking the spirits, trying to get them to reveal themselves or interact with him. And he said the next thing he remembered was waking up in the emergency room with no memory of what happened in between. Johnny said that as Lorson was kind of recounting this story, he became emotional. He was crying, and he said that the whole experience had ruined his life because so many people thought he was crazy, accused him of being an attention seeker or trying to get money or trying to get a TV show. And his main reason, he said, for speaking up now was to finally share his side of the story so people would stop thinking he was insane. And Martha, who was, one of the owners of the house, was very concerned at the time of the incident. And again, later, even when this Kindred Spirits show was filming there, she said, quote, it's publicity, but it's not exactly the kind of publicity that you want to have. I don't want people thinking that when they come to the Villisca Axe Murder house, something's going to happen that's going to make them do something like that, which is like kind of a fair enough statement. But if you can believe it, despite the horrific murders that took place in 1912 and this supposed self-inflicted stabbing, the house remains open for tours and overnight stays. So if you are dying, and hopefully not literally, to go stay at the Villisca Axe Murder house, you can. You just got to head over to Iowa. So it's definitely one of the most infamous unsolved cases, really, in history, because over a century later, it's still a mystery, and it still captivates true crime enthusiasts such as myself and paranormal investigators. And it's just crazy. It's a horrible murders that were never solved. So I'm not going to lie. I love haunted stuff more than I love true crime. I would totally stay there. Actually, Mark and I were talking about, has anybody been to Jerome, Arizona? It's supposed to be one of the most haunted cities. I didn't know that. I've been to Savannah, Georgia. I'm sure I've talked about it. It's one of my favorite places because it's very haunted. We did not, when I went, it was with my ex, we did not stay at a haunted hotel. That was what I really wanted to do. But apparently in Jerome, there are lots of haunted places, and I really want to go. So I'd love to know if anybody has been. But that is the Villisca Axe Murder story. I really like that one. So thank you to the people who suggested it. And I'm going to do a quick sign off here, which I'm sure nobody's complaining about, because I have got to start making dinner. But thank you guys for listening. I don't know why I said it like that. It's been a long day. Actually, it's been a long, lovely weekend. It was really hard to get my brain back online today. But it is. I'm officially back online. I will be doing a new episode tomorrow. And I would love, love, love if somebody could tell me what the fuck is wrong with my Instagram. I mean, I wasn't like actually responding to a ton of messages at the anyways. I was hoping to, but I would like to. So somebody help me, please. And please, I know that I also got some emails, some Patreon comments, and some text messages. I know I got a text message from Hot Grandma. That's how I referred to her. I'm going to share some of those tomorrow, probably. Maybe I should do like a little 10-minute episode a week where we just talk about listener questions and comments and emails and stuff. No, maybe not. We have enough episodes coming out. Okay, that's it. I'm leaving. Jeez, sorry. Holding this microphone's not good. If the volume was a little bit off, sometimes too loud, I apologize. Love you all. Love you. Love you. Please email, write, review, all the things. And I'll be back tomorrow. Okay. Love you. Bye.